The greatest creations are not born in moments of triumph. They arrive only after everything else has already collapsed. By the time Cao Xueqin was living among ruins on the outskirts of Beijing, grinding ink stiffened by winter cold, and setting down the line pages full of absurd words, he was not telling a story. He was writing in defiance of a death that had already claimed everything. What lay before him was not only the ruin of a family, it was the silence of a world that no longer existed. The class he belonged to was already dead. His family's glory had already vanished. Even the life that had once defined him had quietly slipped out of reach. History only remembers Jia Baoyu's retreat from the world. It forgets that the man who created him had already been exiled from the real one. Cao Xueqin did not stand apart from dream of the Red Chamber. He fell with it. The collapse of a hereditary household and the birth of a literary universe roared within the same soul, entwined, inseparable, bound as cause and consequence. He did not write about suffering. Suffering was the condition he wrote under. To understand why this novel feels suffocatingly real, we must look past the story and toward the man alone among ruins, with nothing left but words. Cao Xueqin once inhabited a world most people only reach at the end of a lifetime. Born into the Cao family of Jiangning, a hereditary household responsible for imperial weaving, he was raised at the very intersection of power, wealth, and cultivated life. The Cao family was not merely close to the imperial court. Under Cao Yin, the household stood at the center of Jiangnan's cultural world. Cao Xueqin grew up immersed in this atmosphere, absorbing its values and sensibilities as second nature. What he received was not education in any formal sense, but an education of the senses. The textures of silk, the measured geometry of gardens, the cadence of poetry, the refinement of food. These details, so dazzling in Dream of the Red Chamber, did not come from study. They came from memory, lodged in the body long before they were shaped into words. This was a Proustian kind of experience. Just as a single Madeleine in search of lost time greater than unlocks an entire architecture of remembrance, Cao Xueqin's writing is shaped by a quiet sensory homesickness. The famous lotus leaf soup that amazes Aunt Zhu, the fur-lined robe remembered down to the feel of its weave. These are not ornaments of imagination. They reveal a mind that cannot stop returning to what has been lost, worrying it again and again until memory itself begins to gleam. That early world became the measure of all his later suffering. What he lost was not an abstract idea of prosperity, but its lived reality, carried in sound, scent, touch, and color. When the family still stood at its height, the future seemed effortlessly assured, rich with promise. That certainty did not survive. When it vanished, Cao Xueqin did not move forward with his time. He could only turn back, spending the rest of his life shaping into permanence, a mirage that lived only in memory. The Cao family's fall, sealed by a state-led purge in the 6th year of the Yongzheng reign, drew a brutal line through Cao Xueqin's life. From a world of cultivated splendor in Nanjing to bare survival on the margins of Beijing, the journey north was an exile from the center of society to its edge. What Cao Xueqin endured was a double deprivation, the loss of the means of survival, and the stripping away of his social identity. He fell from a cultural elite into destitution, the family reduced to surviving on thin porridge. This was not a gradual descent, but a violent collapse. More than poverty, he lost his voice. In the old world, his speech, sensibility, and knowledge defined who he was and where he belonged. In the new brutal reality of survival, these same qualities became misplaced, useless, even faintly absurd. He became voiceless, a remnant of a world that had already disappeared. In this condition, Cao Xueqin stands in quiet resonance with Franz Kafka. Kafka, perpetually estranged and ground down within an impersonal bureaucracy, gave literary form to systemic alienation in the inaccessible worlds of the castle and the trial. Cao Xueqin encountered it in an earlier century, under a different regime. He now faced a new order just as cold and opaque. Imperial favor proved unfathomable, official life ruthless, human relations brittle and cruel. These were no longer distant stories, but forces that shattered his existence. Like Kafka's K, he found himself expelled by a vast silent machinery of power, condemned without trial, and denied any court of appeal. This experience forced upon him the lucidity of an exile. When he later looked back upon the bell-ringing, feast-laden world of his youth, he saw not only its beauty, but the fragility and violence embedded in every mechanism that sustained it. He was no longer a participant, he had become its anatomist. Writing became his only form of salvation, and his final act of resistance. To write a novel of extreme splendor while living in hunger and cold was not merely ironic, but a state in which condition, creation and deprivation existed at the same time. Every banquet he described stood in quiet mockery of his own emptiness. Every bolt of silk on the page threw his patched winter coat into sharper relief. This was creation pushed to the edge of self-cruelty, using the brilliance of memory to cauterize the wounds of the present, again and again. Yet it was precisely this violent contrast that gave Dream of the Red Chamber the warmth of an elegy and the precision of a ruin. Cao Xueqin was not praising prosperity, he was conducting a funeral of unprecedented detail and deep tenderness for it. Every lavish scene points toward illusion. Every burst of laughter conceals the approach of tears. The sense of fate that permeates the novel is not a literary device. It is lived experience. When he writes, suddenly, the great mansion collapses. The light fades as the lamp is about to die. He is not delivering a prophecy. He is reporting from the ruins beneath his own roof. Creation became his proof of existence. When the real world stripped him of all meaning, language remained the one domain he still ruled, where he was still an omniscient creator. Through Jia Baoyu, he preserved the part of himself untouched by worldly corrosion. Through Wang Zifang, he anatomized the elegance and terror of power in motion. Through Lin Daiyu's tears, he wept for losses his own life could no longer contain. This book stands as a monument he built for himself and for his family. Its inscription records a single word: loss. Dream of the Red Chamber unfolds as a work of striking polyphony. It is both Cao Xueqin's personal elegy and a judgment upon an entire civilization. On the personal level, the novel bears a strong autobiographical imprint. Jia Baoyu's refusal to conform and his eventual withdrawal echo the author's own sense of misplacement and his search for a final refuge. Family infighting, material hardship, and the gradual dispersal of kin and friends are all literary transfigurations of the Cao family's fate. When he writes of the tree fallen, the monkeys scattered, or the birds gone once the food is gone, each phrase carries the tremor of lived experience. Yet Cao Xueqin does not remain within the confines of personal grief. He elevates the tragedy of one household into an inquiry into the deeper logic of feudal order itself. The parasitic structure of the Jia household, the emptiness of ritual propriety, the suppression of talent, and the structural suffering of women are not private misfortunes, but systemic forces. From his own ruined life, he forges a mirror in which the fate of an entire civilization becomes visible. For this reason, the writing of Dream of the Red Chamber becomes an act of transmutation. Personal devastation did not break Cao Xueqin, it sharpened his sight. He lost every form of worldly splendor, in return gained a form of endurance that only literature can offer. It was a cruel equivalence, and one of the most severe and luminous victories in the history of art. Cao Xueqin spent his life enacting a cruel truth. Sometimes you must lose everything in order to see everything. He lost the great halls alive with music and sumptuous feasts, and glimpsed the lice crawling beneath the gilded surface of wealth. He lost family protection, and saw the coldness woven into human networks. He lost social standing, and gained a truly free perspective to scrutinize the structure of an entire civilization. He emerged from a fortress that had collapsed from within, both survivor and recorder of its ruins, carrying its dust and rubble to rebuild a grander, more authentic palace of the mind. He resonated with Kafka's sense of systemic alienation and Proust's fascination with time's ruins. Yet he was more resolute. The world he wrote about was not only dead in spirit, and had been physically uprooted from his life. This unflinching reality shaped his vision and gave force to every line he wrote. He wrote about decline because he was living it. This simple truth defines not only his work, but his life. Cao Xueqin's life and his magnum opus were entwined, each shaping, consuming, and sustaining the other, a relentless echo of existence and creation. When we sigh over Baoyu and Daiyu's love, mourn the collapse of the Jia household, we hear the echo of a solitary soul who uses the last flame of life, illuminates an entire literary cosmos. He lost everything, only to leave us with one unfinished dream.